Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Beautiful day here in America. Any day we wake up in this great country is a great day. So yesterday we find out that Attorney General Pam Bondi was impaneling a grand jury to look over some documents regarding Russiagate, among many other things, for some of these people involved in the 2016 coup to overthrow a country and overthrow eventually a president of the United States and Donald J. Trump. A 10-year organized crime effort, almost like one you would see in the mob, except a little bit different, a little bit more calculated. Unlimited resources. The list goes on what these people were able to do. The likes of James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Clinton, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. You know all these household names by now. For the last 10 years, they've been working to subvert a president. Well, Pam Bondi said enough's enough. We now get news today that grand jury impanelment that Pam Bondi is set to be looking at is going to possibly take place in Florida. Now, what's so great about Florida? Well, the judge pool is a little bit better than you'd get up in D.C. Some of the district judges in D.C. who could potentially get this case: Tanya Chutkin, Amit Mehta, Trevor McFadden, Carl Nichols, some of these people who were involved for the last 10 years, a lot of them January 6 cases, but just complete total rogue judges. So by Pam Bondi going down to Florida and filing cases down there, I think it levels the playing field a little bit for the Justice Department to be able to get a fair trial, to be able to get fair shakes if they do eventually wind up bringing charges. Now, just earlier this morning, House Oversight Chairman James Comer, who I constantly laud on the show as a great American who's doing a great job, has decided his committee will issue subpoena to a few people. Now, some household names as well that you folks may know, some bigger names, which is what we all, I think, wanted to see. Some of those names include, on October 9th, and these are all subpoenas, as I said, to show up for depositions, former Secretary of State Hillary Rotten Clinton. On October 14th, former President Bill Clinton. October 2nd, former U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. Former FBI Director James Comey on October 7th. Former U.S. Attorney General William Barr on August 18th, so just a few days away on that one. Former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales on August 26th. Former U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions on August 28th. Former FBI Director and Special Counsel Robert Mueller on September 2nd. Former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, that's a tongue twister, on September 9th. Former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder on September 30th. Now, they're all being compelled to testify regarding their handling of the Epstein case, among many other things. As this comes out, the DOJ is now considering releasing the transcripts and the audio of their interview that they just did 2 weeks ago with Ghislaine Maxwell. So in a few moments, we're going to be joined by a great friend of the show, Editor-in-Chief of Just the News, John Solomon, to break all of this down. John's played an integral part in the Russia collusion documents. You may recall in January of 2021, just a day before President Trump left the White House, he declassified Crossfire Hurricane documents given to John Solomon. John Solomon was given the documents, half of them at least, and then was told just hours later that he had to give them back until the following day. John never saw those documents again. So he's going to join us in just a moment to break it all down and to talk about it all. But this is big, folks. This is the wheels of justice maybe starting to turn. Now, I don't want to get ahead of the curve. I don't want to promise you Barack Obama is going to jail or Hillary Rotten Clinton is going to jail or James Comey is going to jail. But this is the kind of investigation that we've long thirsted for, that we've long awaited for, and we long deserve. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what charges come of it. We'll see what the grand jury decides on. But the wheels of justice may finally be starting to turn. And the way that it seems Pam Bondi is going about this is very discreetly, as any case should. No leaks. And following the rule of law, which the Marxist Democrats have not done in any of their cases against President Trump. This is a very meticulous process on how I believe she's handling it right now. Now, we've had our criticisms of Pam Bondi, and let's hope that she's turned the corner and that this is the beginning of something really, really great, because we're thirsty for justice. We're thirsty for truth, because we've been starved of it for the last 10 years as we watched Donald Trump and his family just be absolutely obliterated by a rogue, corrupt Justice Department. In other news, President Trump is preparing to sign an executive order to crack down on woke banks that are targeting conservatives and have been doing so for quite some time. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Trump administration is preparing to find and investigate financial institutions that discriminate against customers based on political or religious beliefs. The current executive order is in draft form right now. It could be signed as soon as this week. It's a direct strike against the woke banking cartel, which has long operated with impunity while silencing and debanking Americans who dare defy the radical left's agenda. According to the draft, which was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, the order will empower regulators to enforce the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, antitrust laws, and consumer protection statutes against financial institutions that shut down accounts for political reasons. Penalties to these banks could include hefty fines, consent decree, or other disciplinary action. Violators will be named and shamed. You remember Chase Bank famously deplatforming General Michael Flynn through all the January 6th stuff. Now, this comes as the U.S. trade deficit has shrunk, folks. You ready for this? 16% from May to June, down to $60 billion. Donald Trump doing Lord's work. Folks, we're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of this quick break, we're going to be joined by my friend, Editor-in-Chief, Just the News, the great John Solomon. I want to get his take on everything Russia, collusion, everything Trump impeachment, and will we see some perpetrators go to jail? John Solomon joins us on the other side of this quick break, folks. Stay with us.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
John, as always, it's great to have you on the Great America Show. Let's start with first the big news of the week that I think you probably have your hands in because you've been on top of this since back in 2016. Attorney General Pam Bondi ordering federal prosecutors to present evidence to a grand jury. We're now hearing it might be in the great state of Florida, maybe surpass Tanya Chutkin and the boys over in D.C.
Yeah, I think that's a likely scenario. So let's talk about this process further because it's a little bit different than the way Barack Obama and Joe Biden's Justice Department worked, right? In those worlds, the White House was telling the Justice Department or the National Archives, get a criminal case started. In this scenario, we're following the normal process, which is FBI career people opened up a grand conspiracy case looking at the last decade of weaponization as an ongoing criminal conspiracy. So it starts with a predicated file of the FBI. Then the Justice Department's briefed on it. Pam Bondi reviews it. A week ago, she decides to create a unique apparatus called a strike force. So strike force is usually only used in big conspiracy cases, like when you're going after the mob or you're going after Colombian drug cartels. So now Barack Obama and the deep state are being looked at like that. And then after a further review of the evidence, Pam Bondi decides that it is time to let a grand jury decide whether criminality has occurred and use subpoena power to compel evidence and testimony that is needed. Now, when you look at the grand conspiracy case, there are some options that come here. Most of the crimes from Russia collusion are outside the statute of limitations. They're back in 16 and 17. The statute's 5 years. Those have expired. The more recent weaponization occurred in Florida with the raid of Donald Trump's home and the effort to try to use Jack Smith to portray him as a man who violated the Espionage Act. Ultimately wasn't charged with that. all those charges were thrown out for several reasons. One, Jack Smith wasn't lawfully appointed according to the judge. Two, there's some real concerns about whether the raid was warranted. You take what happened in Florida and say that's the end of the conspiracy inside the current statute of limitations of 5 years. We're going to put the grand jury in Florida, and then it can go back and look at events that mirror this back in 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So now you can look at, was Ukraine impeachment part of the conspiracy? Now you can look at whether Russia collusion was it. And even though some events are outside the statute, because it's an ongoing conspiracy, you can wrap them in and tie things together. In 23, John Brennan gives some testimony that some members of Congress thinks inaccurate. That's in the statute of limitations, but allows you to go back and look at things in 16 and 17. So that is the idea. By the way, it's exactly how the Justice Department works when you're not trying to be political. You just follow your processes, and that's what's going on here.
Yeah, inaccurate from John Brennan. Roger Stone, who I have on the show every single week, they allege that he gave inaccurate depositions, and he was about to go to jail for it.
Sure.
From a premise which should have never started in the first place because there was no underlying crime. So I don't even know how you go back and relitigate all the people who were tied up in this fishing net of Russia collusion because there was no underlying crime. So how do you charge these people in the first place? This almost sounds, John, like a RICO, and a RICO is what they tried to use to get Donald Trump. Yeah. But this actually might be a RICO with all these mobsters, as you laid it out so perfectly, who have been working for 10 years to subvert a president and a nation.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the overarching. Again, we're still early, but my early reporting suggests that this is going to be a criminal civil rights investigation. That what you're going to look at this entire period is an ongoing effort to achieve political ends by depriving Americans of their civil liberties under the color of government authority. In other words, Hillary Clinton used the FBI and the CIA to legitimize her fake story to get a leg up on Donald Trump. When Joe Biden was in danger of being exposed on Ukraine, they weaponized the same capabilities to make Donald Trump look like he's got a Ukraine problem. And then when they find Joe Biden's documents in his garage and in his office at UPenn, they open up on Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump has a different status as a classified holder. That wash, rinse, repeat cycle could be viewed as one ongoing effort to deprive a large group of Americans of their civil liberties under the color of authority. And I think that might be the overarching crime that the grand jury is asked to look at. We'll see, but I think that's the likely predicate.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong, John? The only Russia collusion, per se, that they found were people tied, it wasn't even tied to the Trump administration or the Trump campaign, but were people posting on Facebook and Paul Manafort allegedly sharing polling numbers with a Russian national. Is that the extent of the Russia collusion that this man was impeached for and people's lives were ruined?
Yeah. Ultimately, Trump wasn't impeached on Russia. He was impeached on Ukraine. Right, but you're right. But he was, the whole effort to smear him for 3 years, to put him through tens of millions of dollars of legal bills, to ruin the reputations of people like Mike Flynn and Roger Stone and George Papadopoulos and Carter Page, was to create the illusion that Donald Trump had done something when in fact it was Chicken Little stuff. And it's very important to understand. Robert Mueller concluded there was no criminal conspiracy. John Durham took the next step and said there was not an iota of evidence to warrant the opening of the investigation. That too flipped. All right, first, Donald Trump didn't do anything criminal. Then opening the investigation was on false pretenses. That's what now potentially gives rise to the idea that this was a conspiracy to violate civil liberties.
So you never get over anxious or hyped. You usually keep it very, very real. Who can we expect to be implicated in this? It's like a spider's web of corruption. Who do you think is implicated in it all, aside from the obvious, I guess?
Yeah. Well, listen, the early criminal referrals identify some pretty obvious people: James Comey, John Brennan, maybe James Clapper, Barack Obama. So that's what the criminal referrals have been sent to the Justice Department are. So I assume you're going to start there. Each of them have a different status. John Brennan's unique because he gave testimony in 23, still in the statute of limitations. Barack Obama has immunity under the presidential immunity rules. Now, he's the most fascinating person. I want to talk about Barack Obama for a second.
Yeah.
But before I do it, let me just lay the ground. There is zero doubt now. We have 100% proof that a grand political conspiracy occurred. And the question now is, does that political conspiracy, that political dirty trick that Hillary Clinton tried to start and that continued on for 9 years, does it rise to the level of criminality? A lot of people say yes. We'll see what a grand jury says. But it is important to note that Barack Obama is essential at the ignition point of this thing. Why? The second the FBI intercepts information that the Russians seem to be sitting on Hillary Clinton's phones and emails, and they know she's approved a plan to get the email scandal behind her own email scandal, and put a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's campaign house. The Russians intercept information that the FBI is going to legitimize this. It's going to put, quote, fuel on the fire. Russians are very good at what they do. When they intercept something, they probably have it true. Now, they're also tricky. Sometimes they will move their information among each other by falsifying some of it. Joe said this, really, John said this, but they put it as Joe because the recipient knows it's John, but they hide it just in case U.S. intelligence intercepts it. But it's important to note that when the U.S. intercepted this in July 2016, the FBI believed it was not fabricated, meaning the storyline wasn't fabricated. Certain pieces of evidence almost certainly would be, because that's how the Russians move intelligence among themselves. The CIA believed it had enough credence that John Brennan needed to go immediately and tell Barack Obama what the Russians knew about Hillary Clinton. Why is that important? That happens before the FBI starts their whole pursuit of Donald Trump. So Barack Obama knows there's a plot by Hillary Clinton to create this fake story and that the FBI may be asked to legitimize it, and he stands silent. He doesn't stop his FBI when James Comey and gang, the Lovebirds, the whole team, Andy McCabe, go out and legitimize the allegation by opening up a case that had fake FISA warrants and no predicate, as John Durham ultimately, no legal predicate, no lawful predicate. Barack Obama's at the ignition point. Then in December, when Hillary loses and she wants to play the victim card, I couldn't have lost on the merits because I didn't go to Wisconsin and Michigan and take care of those voters. I lost because Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin cheated, which he didn't. They need to create that plausible affirmation that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton didn't lose. They lost unfairly. And so Barack Obama's about to get an intelligence briefing, a presidential daily briefing that says, we, the intelligence community, believe that Vladimir Putin did not put his thumb on the scale of the election. He didn't pick one candidate over there. Yeah, they did some mischief. They bought some Facebook ads. But the most important evidence that the intelligence community had at that moment was in October 2016, when you would most want to meddle. If you were trying to help Donald Trump, you'd weigh in October, because that's when the majority of Americans make up their mind. The Russians pulled out all of their active measures. They didn't try to influence. And by the way, they had new dirt on Hillary Clinton they could have unleashed. They didn't do that. Hence, it's a pretty good intelligence assessment that they didn't try to help Donald Trump win. Barack Obama's about to be told that. By the way, Congress has already been briefed that. The gang of eight's been briefed that. And Barack Obama's like, I don't want to hear that. Don't brief me on that. Cancel that briefing. I'm signing an order. I want a new intelligence committee assessment. Now, all 17 agencies made up that first assessment. They came together on it. The Obama effort with John Brennan hijacks it to three people: John Brennan, CIA, James Comey's FBI, who already been in on this for quite some time, and the N.S.A., which is sort of an unwilling participant. They cut out the other 14 intelligence community because there's no way they would have signed off on what ultimately came out. And then they flipped the conclusion 180 degrees. We go from no thumb on the scale for a candidate to, Vladimir Putin definitely was trying to help Donald Trump win. That gives Hillary Clinton her victimology excuse that all Democrats seem to need to have these days. They don't lose on the merits. They lose because they're a victim. And then that becomes an official product of the U.S. intelligence community. That is where a deprivation of civil liberties and a fraud on the American people could potentially be pursued. And the only way that the intelligence community can hijack that report is by injecting the Steele dossier into it, and then some source that only John Brennan is managing. CIA directors don't manage sources. What's John Brennan managing a special source that he won't tell anybody about? The tradecraft used on that is laughable. We wouldn't expect the CIA in a Naked Gun movie to use that level of silly intelligence, but that's what Barack Obama allowed to happen. And then let's go to Barack Obama one more time. Fast forward to January. The FBI has concluded that Mike Flynn did not commit a crime. He's innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. They're about to close down the investigation, and Barack Obama presides over a meeting in the Oval Office. Think about the use of the Oval Office for this. And how can we keep the investigation of Mike Flynn going? Maybe we can throw the Logan Act in. Maybe we could lure him into an interview and a perjury trap. And Barack Obama presides over a meeting to decide how could we trip up an innocent man to make him look like criminals so we can handicap the beginning of the Trump presidency. Those are the three known events of Barack Obama. What happened between those, we don't know yet. He may have immunity, but I'll tell you one thing. When he goes before a grand jury, he's going to have to answer questions honestly. And if he lies, he is not immune to prosecution. And because he has that presidential immunity, he can't use the Fifth Amendment. He is actually immunized against the Fifth Amendment. So Barack Obama could be in a pickle if he gets a grand jury subpoena.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
A lot to unpack there. Let's just start with the Oval Office first. I guess there's no better place to find out, to know you're not being wiretapped or nobody's got a cell phone in there, because most of the times you're in there, at least me, I've never been allowed to bring a cell phone in there. So,
that's right.
Nobody's recording you. Nobody's tapping you. So I guess there's no better place. The immunity thing is interesting because obviously the Supreme Court ruled that presidents are immune. It worked for Donald Trump, and presumably it'll work for Obama. How do we get out of that immunity sphere for things like this? I mean, are you immune from treason?
Again, we don't know, right? The drift of the Supreme Court ruling by the legal experts I've talked to is that anything that a president does is either handled by impeachment or they're presented, if it's official acts, or you don't get to prosecute them in criminal court. Now, you could go back if there was a seditious or treason and say, hey, treason is not in the normal statutes of the United States. It's defined in the Constitution. And therefore, we'd like to challenge this immunity rule and say, maybe it should be limited, not to this.
Right.
I want to remind people, though, that I think when President Trump uses the term treasonous or seditious and Tulsi Gabbard are using it, I think they're using it in the colloquial, which is this guy was willing to compromise his country's election just for political gain. But the treason is the only, I believe, the only crime that's fully defined in the Constitution. It's defined very narrowly as waging war, military war against the United States, or giving aid and comfort to a foreign enemy who is waging war. I don't think, we could argue it's a psychological operations war, but I don't think treason is going to apply at the statute. I don't think the Justice Department would try to stretch that, because they got a lot of evidence already, and Barack Obama's in the most uncomfortable position. He's going to have to tell the truth. He can't take the Fifth, and if he doesn't tell the truth, he walks himself into the very perjury trap that they were discussing for Mike Flynn. The irony of this isn't lost on many people.
So something that boggles my mind, and maybe you have better insight into this, because anybody I've asked so far can't answer the question. These people were doing the worst crimes, John, you could possibly commit in this country, okay? There's no denying that. Yep. Why are they keeping paper trails? Why are they writing out documents to then be stored at the Department of Justice? If I'm going to commit a crime and I'm a mobster, John, and I'm going to whack somebody, I'm not writing down on a piece of paper, John Solomon's getting whacked today by so-and-so, and then I'm not going to put it in a bag to maybe possibly be burned. Number one, why were these documents being kept? Are these people absolutely stupid? Number two, why were they not destroyed? Now, I'm being good cop, bad cop here for these people, because I don't understand it all.
It's a head scratcher, but the great thing about the government is that one hand often doesn't know what the other 10 fingers on the other 5 hands are doing. And so everyone's confused, right? We are a government that writes everything down. That's why our enemies are so successful at hacking and getting secrets all the time. That's why Hillary Clinton had all these things on her email server, right? I think the most damning records are not from Barack Obama. Now, I will say that John Brennan's notes of his briefing of Barack Obama on the Clinton Plan Initiative are pretty damning, and he kept them. Why? I don't know. When did he write them? I don't know exactly. It doesn't look like they were written the moment he got it, but he writes them at some point. Now, there are some people who write things that we call CYA. When Valerie Jarrett writes on the last hour of her time, we did everything by the book on Barack Obama. No one writes that into their things unless you're trying to create a record because you're worried maybe you weren't doing something right. But the people who were recording it, the people who caught the most jaw-dropping potential pieces of evidence are the downstream bureaucrats who had an inkling that they were being asked or participating into something that they thought was unlawful or unworthy of American intelligence or law enforcement. So it's Bill Priestap, the Assistant Director of FBI for Counterintelligence, who sits through that meeting with Barack Obama in January, like, what's our goal here, to get the truth or to jam up an innocent man by walking him into a perjury check? He writes that down in his notes.
Wow.
That's a man with a conscience. They call that spontaneous utterances. And that could be an important piece of evidence. I don't think Priestap was willing to cooperate with John Durham. That's a missed opportunity for Durham. Maybe they should have compelled him. But it's the whistleblower that we just learned about at the NIC, the National Intelligence Council, who writes down, I just found out we might have used the Steele dossier. There's no chance we should have used that. That's terrible. And he writes it down in real time. Most of the most damning written evidence is actually written by people with a conscience in a career position or in a position that weren't part of the plot and could say, I think I'm getting dragged into something I didn't sign up for. That always turns out to be, just like in Nixon and Watergate, the most damning evidence. And we'll just have to see if this rises to criminality. Will a grand jury? I want to do something that the Democrats never did with Donald Trump. Every person that we're talking about today is presumed innocent under the law. That's something the Democrats never practiced in the 10 years of weaponization. We have to see where a grand jury gets. But I will say this, the evidence that we now have is more damning and more magnificent, I mean magnificent, just massive. It's actually worse than I thought. Devin Nunes came on my show the other day and said, it's way worse than we thought. Jim Jordan said the same thing. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think it was this elaborate. It really was this elaborate. Does it rise to criminality? That grand jury is going to decide that.
So the documents that are given to the grand jury and will be presented to the grand jury, is that stuff we've never seen before?
I think a lot of it, thanks to President Trump, is stuff we're now seeing, right? We're basically the darkest, deepest secrets, things that were locked under key since 2017, 2016, 2020, are now being exposed to the American public. And I think we're going to see more. I think at some point we ought to see the Ukraine whistleblowers a complaint. He names me. I'd like to see what he said about me because I might be able to prove he was lying. I'd like to know what he said about President Trump's conversation because a lot of people have read it saying he misconstrued the conversation to get this case started. Does that look like another version of Russia collusion? Potentially. So I think we're going to see more. I think by the time the grand jury sees all the evidence, most of the written documentary evidence is going to be in the public because Donald Trump is committed to transparency. What we won't see, what will happen behind the closed doors of the grand jury, is the testimony. When Barack Obama is asked the most fateful questions, how does he answer? We won't know until the indictments, or if indictments come out, or if a final report is written. What we did learn about the work of John Durham in some of these sealed annexes, what we did learn from the Justice Department OIG is that when people realized they could be charged with perjury or lying to a federal agency, they gave up an awful lot, like, oh yeah, no, Hillary Clinton really did. I'm laughing at the New York Times the last couple of days. They literally look like Pravda for Hillary Clinton right now. They're out there, no conspiracy on Russia. No, what are you talking about? They're protecting their Pulitzer. I get it. It's kind of shameful, but I get what they're doing. But hey, just read Hillary Clinton's book. She admits in her book she approved the plan. Read Jennifer Palmieri's op-ed when she's doing a postmortem. She admits it to Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton's getting away out there. I didn't approve any plan. That's Russian disinformation. I'm sorry. You admitted it in your book. You got to own your signed confession in your book. Those sort of things are going to go on in the grand jury. We won't see that for a while unless indictments come out, but it does give you a sense of the peril that some people, I think, feel like they're in. The last time we heard Russian disinformation, what was it about? The Hunter Biden laptop. We know that was a big lie. It's starting to feel like Hunter Biden laptop too, with some of these really implausible things that are being flung around by not only the Democrats who are in the sites of this investigation, but also the media protectors who I think could be in the conspiracy indictment. I think you could charge some of these news organizations with aiding and abetting a false conspiracy.
So real quickly before we wrap up,
sure.
You mentioned Bill Priestap's who played, I guess, an integral role, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, he's just a small fish in a big pond. I think indictments here are so integral for how the Republic moves forward to ensure that this never happens again. People are so tired of we saw in 2016 to 2020 just BS indictments of low-level people who wound up walking anyway. Do you think this is the first time that we actually see justice and not retribution, justice served to these criminals?
I hope so. What that justice is going to depend on the final body of evidence and fact that becomes public. But I have said for a long time that this last decade has jeopardized taking the greatest constitutional republic the world has ever created and turning it into a banana republic. And I said, if we didn't punish Russia collusion, something else would happen. Ukraine happened. After Ukraine happened, classified documents, Jack Smith happened. We now have 3 Rubicons that have been crossed that never before. Political dirty tricks have occurred in our elections for our entire lives, going all the way back to the beginning of the country. You can find it in the 1780s and 90s. We never let our intelligence and law enforcement become the perpetrators in this. And that's what the Rubicon we crossed. If we don't punish the little guy, the mid guy, the big guy, the message to future generations is go further and be more of a banana republic because there's no consequence. Why not cheat to win the election and get your agenda done because no one's going to get punished? That is the moment, the abyss that we hang over. Are we going to go back to being a constitutional republic? Or are we going to be a banana republic? That is the question the grand jury, the Justice Department, and Congress is going to answer in these next days. I think some accountability of large proportion has to occur to create a deterrence, or sometime before our grandkids are grown up, we're going to be looking at, hey, we just look like Venezuela. We look like Cuba. We look like the Soviet Union. And I don't think Americans want that to be our generation's legacy.
Yeah, you look what they did to Jair Bolsonaro just yesterday.
Sure.
House arrest until his trial. The good news is James Comer in Congress, who is one of my favorite people.
He's amazing what he's done. Amazing.
Just a great human being, on camera, off camera, just a really good guy. This morning, John, subpoenaing multiple individuals.
He sure did.
Hillary Clinton on October 9th, Bill Clinton October 14th, Merrick Garland October 2nd, James Comey October 7th, Bill Barr, Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, Jeff Sessions, Bob Mueller, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, all subpoenaed. I mean, seems to be that we're finally getting some action in Congress, who gets a bad name, quite honestly, for some of the work they do.
Yeah, listen, James Comer single-handedly helped us unravel the Biden scandal. It is what we now know it to be. And if he and the Ways and Means Committee don't get those IRS whistleblowers, who, by the way, are part of the conspiracy, they were suppressed from looking at legitimate Hunter Biden wrongdoing. He did more to get a factual basis into the public that helped educate us for the 24 election. And his legacy is cemented in the fact that he stuck to the facts. He was tough, but he got the facts. Congress needs more chairmen like that who just get the facts. They're not playing politics. They're getting us the truth. We need less of an Adam Schiff. We need less of a guy who went out there every day saying, I see Russia collusion. Well, I don't know what he was seeing, but he might have just been seeing the Democratic Party talking points, because there was no Russia collusion. He dishonored Congress with the way he used his apparatus. We'll see how these next chairmen, Comer's still on the case. You got Jim Jordan. You've got the Ways and Means guys did great work on some stuff. But I think you could see those chairmen cement their legacy with real oversight.
Adam Schiff, you mentioned, that's the same Adam Schiff who refinanced his house 5 or 6 times over the course of 4 years.
That's our story. Yeah. October last year. Yeah. That's our story.
Absolutely insane that these people, John. You get the last word here. As always, it's a delight to talk to you, and it's so much more informative than talking to a lawyer about things.
Well, I love lawyers for sources, but you're right. They'd always make great interviews. Listen, I think you did a great job of laying out why this moment is so important to history. This isn't just about the next 10 years of Republicans versus Democrats, or Obama's legacy or Trump's legacy. It is whether we're going to go back to being a law and order constitutional republic, or whether we're going to allow the political machinery that the Democrats set in motion to turn this into a banana republic. And by the way, once that happens, Republicans will be doing the same thing, because that'll be the only way to fight. That is not the legacy I think most Americans want for our generation. We succeeded the World War II generation, who gave us the most honorable commitment to America we could think of. Our generation has to make sure we don't allow this to become the norm, and the stakes are that high. We'll see how history plays out.
John Solomon, editor-in-chief, Just the News. Where can they catch you each and every night, John?
Yep, Just the News, No Noise television show on Real America's Voice right after Steve Bannon at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
And Just the News for all of your breaking news. John Solomon, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you, John. Thank you.
Thanks to John Solomon, folks, and thank you all for being with us today here on The Great America Show. We hope to see you back here tomorrow for The Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. Same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Blue Dobbs. Have a great night, everybody.